What's Kundalini Yoga and why is it so successful in treating addiction and grief? What does it mean when I talk about the rise of the divine feminine or the power of finding the quote-unquote Adi Shakti in ourselves or in our relationships? And why does every spiritual teacher I interview for this show, from Francis Weller to Dr. Eben Alexander, keep going back to the idea that daily meditation is the foundation for just about, well, everything in our lives? To help me answer these questions, I've enlisted world-renowned yogini and musician Sukhdev Jackson to be our guest on Unscripted today. And man, what a guest. If you want to feel love in the next hour, understand the power of self-forgiveness, and walk away with some real tools to help yourself heal and step back into your power, crack your heart open to Sukhdev and listen up. This powerful woman has something to teach all of us. She has walked through the fire and come back a wise woman. Not to mention her voice. Well, you'll hear her voice. Forget her albums. I, for one, could listen to her read the phone book all day and be moved. Yeah, that's Sukhdev singing vocals with her band, Icona. Wow, pretty awesome.
Today must be the most beautiful day I ever lived. Waves are coming in, but I am sitting still. There ain't nothing I want for. I got everything that I need, everything. So my conclusion is, it's the most beautiful day.
Hey all, welcome back. It's Thursday, April 20th, y'all. And you're listening to the 9th episode of Unscripted. Yeah, number 9. You know, now that I think about it, I think 9 is actually a really significant number in numerology. I don't know much about numerology, but I think the number 9 represents something like universal love or eternity, faith, and maybe I heard once the spiritual laws of universal attraction. I could be wrong here, but I don't think so. So it's not surprising that we would have love personified on the 9th show then, today, in the form of Sukhdev. Yeah, I've never been with a girl, which most people are actually surprised by, but clearly I have a girl crush on her. Before we get to Sukhdev, I just need to point something out. You guys, today marks the first month since we launched the show. So I'm going to take a moment and recognize this sweet little milestone, which I'm actually usually really bad about doing because I tend to be so focused, like most of us, on the next goal and the next goal and the next goal. But let's not do that whole type A overachiever thing here right now. Instead, I'm going to take a quick moment to honor all those people who have encouraged Unscripted. I need to shout out a huge thank you to my audio editor and audio producer, Daniel, and the entire team at Point Zero Productions, who act as both my backbone and sounding board every single day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to the guests who have already been on the show, oh my God, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your time and generosity of spirit. I'm in awe of you and all the work you guys do and your willingness to be a part of Unscripted. It's just so cool. I can't believe that literally some of the people I'm talking to on these interviews, I was reading their books last summer and didn't even know what a podcast was. Just blows my mind. So before we end this little gratitude list, I have to talk to you guys, the listeners. My God, you guys have shown up big time. Thousands of you already. You download, you listen, you send me and the team emails and Facebook messages, you ask questions, you give suggestions, you tell us your stories. Please, please, please keep reaching out. We will reach back, I promise. Keep it all coming because, let's face it, we want to hear from you. We need to hear from you guys. And we also need you guys to spread the word to your friends and family members that Unscripted exists. Show them on their smartphones how to find us, review us on iTunes, because we're truly grateful for all of it. And consider joining our private Facebook group, Daily Unscripted. There, you'll get more access to me and to our expert guests. You'll get information about upcoming events, and best of all, a tribe. Speaking of the tribe, let's get to Sukhdev Jackson, our guest for today's show, without further delay. As I briefly mentioned earlier, Sukhdev is a Kundalini yoga instructor. She's also a famous musician, a wife, and a mother. Just to give you a little background, Kundalini is a spiritually based yoga practice brought to the United States by a man named Yogi Bhajan in the late 1960s. As I've said on previous shows, I was actually introduced to Kundalini by Dr. Kelly Brogan about a year and a half ago, and she wrote a beautiful best-selling book called A Mind of Your Own. And for any of those who listened to the episode called My Secret and Obsession with the Light that we launched a couple weeks ago, you know Kundalini totally changed my life. I clearly had some sort of Kundalini rising experience in my first class, which they say can happen. I don't really understand how all of this stuff works, but I can tell you it's serious stuff. I've never felt more naturally high, and it lasted for weeks. Kundalini is still not as popular as other forms of yoga, but the community is growing really fast. I think it's only a matter of time before Kundalini becomes a household name in this country. Sukhdev was actually born Pauline Drossot. Sukhdev is her spiritual name. Many people in the Kundalini community are given spiritual names after a certain period of time. I don't have one yet, but I seriously want one and joke with people all the time what my spiritual name would be. So I'll keep you guys posted if I actually end up getting one. Sukhdev was born in Brussels, but she moved to London when she was 11 years old. And there's this backstory as to why she ended up in London, which she's going to tell you about during the interview. In London, she was instantly drawn to the music scene and became a singer and a songwriter. By the age of 18, she landed an EMI record deal with Parlophone Records, the label the Beatles were signed to. Throughout the 90s, she toured the world, appeared on MTV, and was recognized for her unique style by Billboard magazine. As part of the urban sound of London, and I believe she was into a lot of rap music, which is so fascinating to me, she really thrived creatively. But that chaotic industry, which felt for her devoid of spirituality, left her feeling empty, and she was using a lot of drugs, and she began to search for something more, as she'll tell us. In 2000, Sukhdev moved to Los Angeles and discovered Kundalini Yoga. She immersed herself in it, she got clean, and entirely changed her life. In 2006, she became an instructor, and for the past decade, she has had the privilege to study extensively with yogis, holistic practitioners, shamans, and the native people of the, and I'm probably going to butcher this, I think it's called Shamash tribe. Sukhdev now travels internationally, teaching and singing with her Grammy-nominated percussionist husband, who I have actually also met in person, and I can tell you this, the love between those two people is something of another world. It's incredible to be in the same room with them, let alone have the privilege to hear them play together. Without further ado, Sukhdev. Today's episode is partially supported by Quero Shoes. This is such a great company. I have to tell you, I am so proud to be aligned with them. Let me tell you a little bit about Quero Shoes. They're handmade shoes for men and women, crafted by Spanish artisans who use only the finest materials from Italy and France and Spain. Quero has made it simple for you to buy a classic upscale shoe that is literally custom designed by you. So how do you do this? You simply go to Quero.com. That's QUEROHMS.com. And you pick out a style you love. And man, do they have some gorgeous styles to choose from. I was on their website and it's really off the hook stuff, you guys. And then you build your shoes to fit your own taste and measurements. You can pick the laces you want, the heel size, even the exact color of the leather. This is an old way to make shoes, but a new way to buy them. And if that's not enough, they even offer free shipping in the US and free returns. That's awesome. And when you sign up for their newsletter, you also get an extra 15% off with your purchase. So go to Quero.com to learn more. That's QUEROHMS.com to learn more.
Today must be the most beautiful day I ever lived.
So, Sukhdev Jackson, thank you so much for joining us today on Unscripted. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you. So honored to be here with you. Now, thank you.
So a lot of my listeners, we haven't done a show yet on Kundalini Yoga, but they've heard me mention it quite a few times now. And certainly all of the patients that I've seen over the last year and a half since my first Kundalini Yoga class have heard about it because I beg them to go, sometimes with me. Can you tell us a little bit about your story, your personal story, your journey, and how you came to Kundalini Yoga?
Sure, I'd be glad. I am originally from Belgium, and so I grew up there and was born there, and I lived a pretty harsh childhood experience with my mother choosing to take her life when I was around 7. My grandmother a year before that, when I was around 6. So there is this veil and this story of women in my family being crazy, and my great-grandmother also being labeled with that. My mother spent 4 years in psychiatric care before she chose to end her life. So, I come from this lineage of women. I grew up with, a stepmother most of my life in boarding school, and I left Brussels to go to London with my father at age 11, and was immediately put in boarding school, and then really found that I began to form a relationship with alcohol and marijuana at a very young age of 14 in boarding school. And that eventually developed into some pretty hardcore drug abuse for the next 10 years of my life, including cocaine, crack, including all sorts of ecstasies and marijuana and alcohol. And also, while trying to get better mentally, ended up on psychiatric meds for a couple of years, which really flipped my lid. It was Prozac back in those days. So I'm this, 20-year-old, like, not only on Prozac, trying to get better, but also doing drugs and alcohol. And I just hit such a huge rock bottom after spending many, many years doing all of that, and in the record business, in the music business in London, surrounded by that kind of lifestyle.
And you had a very prolific music career despite all of that.
I had quite a prolific music career. Yes, I was definitely a functioning addict. I loved music. It was like my God. It was my lifesaver. It was the one thing that kept me in my body. Music and dancing, and hence I spent all my time in clubs, And so I had this this music career. I had a record deal with EMI Records for a couple of years, and kind of things looked like they were really booming, and I was really going somewhere on it. I was on MTV and BET and touring and working in New York with like well-known producers, and it was a fun time, but it was also a time of extreme abuse and feeling like I had to live up to this identity, which started to feel what had been so authentic for me started to feel like not so authentic anymore once you put the marketing around it and all the game pieces. And so I really hit a rock bottom with my record deal ended with EMI when I was 25. And by some extreme fortune and luck, I was able to take off to Los Angeles. I was desperate to get out of London, and I took off to LA, and I found myself really engaging in a lot of like personal self, transformational work, nothing to do with Kundalini yoga yet. And I did four years of this work with Landmark Forum Education, which was really interesting and which was really about the science of being, like what it is to be a human being. And it was extremely helpful until I totally relapsed with an addict as a boyfriend. And 2 years later, found myself in 12-step, really looking at myself. Wow, trying to get him sober, going to 12-step to get him sober, and realized what an addict I was. And I never knew that until I was 25 years old and had spent, probably 15 years in pretty heavy addiction. I discovered Kundalini yoga through who now is my beloved husband, but through this man named Akadama. He introduced me to just a yoga set and a meditation. I was on my way back to Europe to sort some visa problems out. He gave me this book. He gave me a CD. I was so desperate, had hit such a rock bottom. I was sober. I was going to do anything to get myself mentally sane in a place where I felt like I could really just live and be happy and thrive. And so I did this set for 40 days every day. And I took this CD and I did this mantra and this meditation where you sing out loud. And I had, by the 40th day, a total Kundalini awakening. So let me explain what that is.
Please, yeah.
So Kundalini awakening can happen for different people in different ways. For me, it was this energy that I felt sort of this like warm energy that rose up my spine and just opened up my mind and my vision to a new reality. I began to see myself with different eyes. I began to see that I am not just this addiction. I am not just this trauma that I lived as a child. I am not just this woman in this body, in this shape. I am something beyond that. And the best word I could use it to describe is I am a soul. I am an eternal being in this body, in this suitcase of a body with this life experience. And through meditation and continued efforts and eventually developing a daily practice, what happens when you develop a daily practice is you start to create space within yourself. And so the reality that you're seeing through your eyes is not, you understand that it is not the real reality. It is what the yogis call Maya. It is a fabricated experience of the soul having in this body. So I started to be able to decipher like, oh, I am not just that. I am so much more than that. And that enabled me to connect to my heart. It enabled me to start healing my trauma. It enabled me to see beyond what I was living on this physical realm.
Incredible. Did you have the spiritual awakening? Was it gradual for you, the Kundalini, that people in the Kundalini world, or I think even outside, it's sort of a mainstream word that people know, but they don't really know what to attribute it to, this sense of a Kundalini rising? Did that happen to you over the 40 days, those first 40 days of mantra and meditation, or was it on the 40th day?
I would say that for me, I've had many times that experience of that rising energy. I can do like a white tantric day, right? An 8-hour day of meditation in Kundalini is called white tantric. I can do a day of that and definitely feel that energy very strongly. And if I meditate deeply, but for me, I've been on this path for, 12 years. I've been teaching full time for 10. Never chose to teach. It was an absolute calling. I had such a big healing and awakening that I was left with, how can I not? Mm-hmm. How can I not share? Now, how can I not share what has liberated me? It doesn't mean that that I don't suffer, that I'm still not dealing with some addictive behaviors, that I don't doubt myself, that I'm not insecure, that I don't want to be 10 pounds skinnier. It doesn't mean any of that, but it means that my consciousness, which is, the best way I can describe it, is the way the mirror, the filter that I see the world through is continuously blossoming and opening. So the Kundalini energy, yes, it rises, but what it does when you adapt a daily practice and you surround yourself by community, because I think that's extremely important, it peels the layers of your current reality that you see, your current filter, layer by layer by layer. So more and more what's happening now is I'm able to rest in my natural well-being. I'm able to rest and understand and believe that the universe is here for me. And I'm the only thing getting in the way. I'm here understanding that the universe is all providing and all loving. And I am my filters, my consciousness is the only thing that separates me from that well-being, which is my nature. So it's a constant, I believe, through meditation, through chanting, through the practice of Kundalini Yoga, it's just a peeling of the layers that we have accumulated on this human journey, which sometimes are not that supportive to the human experience.
Mm-hmm. And so one thing that I want to go back to, so many of my patients and people ask me all the time, do I have to meditate every day? What is this about? And to be honest with you, I had adopted some kind of scattered meditation practice, but it wasn't until I went to Omega for the women's retreat, run by Golden Bridge, run by Gurmukh, that I met you. And we were told the first night that you would like to see us at 4:45, 5 in the morning to start meditating. And yeah. I had never done the mantra work. I didn't even really know what a mantra was besides like what someone sends you, in an email to like make you have a good day, which is like really a positive phrase. I'm what you call a reluctant spiritualist. So people will say to me like, you should do ayahuasca. And I'm like, no way. And then I'm like doing ayahuasca. And then same with past life regression therapy, all of this stuff, Kundalini, all of it. I was like, no. And then I'm like knee deep in it. But so this was the thing. I was shocked. I was shocked. I didn't understand. I had no concept until you experience it. What happens when you sing a mantra for 2 hours to your body and to your soul? The only way I can describe it is that you sink into a place in your heart and you suspend your conscious thinking and go into your subconscious self, and you start connecting with a universal energy or all the consciousness of the room, everything that everyone's doing in the room, you connect to. Your eyes are shut and you sink into this place in your heart. And for me, it allowed this healing to take place that was very compartmentalized at the beginning of the day. That you could start to weep out of nowhere or feel massive amounts of joy because you were stopping the world for a certain amount of time just to listen to the vibration of human voices and singing or the instruments. And it puts you in a hypnotic state and taps into other parts of your brain that you've never experienced before unless you've done it. And you connect back to something very ancient within yourself. I was blown away. And to be honest with you, then you spend the rest of your day, I hate using the word high, because I think that meditation does make us high on some level, right? You just feel afloat, but it really, you don't move anymore from a place of anxiety. And I think for people who grow up in addictive homes or grow up around addiction or have suffered with addiction, one of the things we also suffer with is control. On some level, we're always battling either I don't want to be in control or I want to be totally in control of my experience. And if I can't be in total control of my experience, I'm going to have to medicate it because it's too uncomfortable. And so when you do this mantra work, when you do this daily psycho-spiritual practice, you can move throughout your day from a place of, it's okay that the universe is supporting me. I don't have to work so hard at being in control. I don't know if that
So
resonates.
beautifully said. I mean, brilliantly said now. I mean, it's what's happening is, okay, it's just really simple. We take a shower every day. We wash ourselves, we dress ourselves, we manicure ourselves, we make sure we have a nice presentation on the outside. Now, what's happening to the mind is, especially in this day and age, because we're no longer 100 years ago living on a farm with our family, you know, sort of like there's no TV, there's no outside stimulus, really, right? But from really your family unit, what's happening now is we are bombarded with, thousands of messages a day of more, better, and you should be doing something different. Why don't you try this? That our mind
Or if you're
is
not happy, you're failing. Like this
exactly,
concept, this we're
very,
being spoon fed, happy, happy, happy all the time. Don't suffer, don't suffer,
absolutely.
don't suffer.
Absolutely. So this our mind is basically ingesting that through the arc line, the energetic body. So right, so we're not just one physical body. We are one physical body, 6 energetic bodies, and 3 mental bodies. So how are we not taking care of our other 9 bodies during the day? And meditation, it's kind of like you're watching your window get super dirty and you're not cleaning it, and then you can't see outside anymore. You can't see the beautiful sunshine and the trees. So the daily meditation, and why it's such a requirement in this day and age, it's like you're cleaning that window, and all of a sudden you're cleaning the window with the mantra and the meditations and the kriyas, and then wow, you could suddenly see this, the rays are shining through the window, the trees are there, I can see clearly again. It's just like when we don't meditate, we're just living in this accumulation of negative, most of the time, messages that we've received from mass media, because that's what we're surrounded by. People get out, they don't even get out of their beds and then on their iPhone. They go to bed with their iPhone on, checking whatever social media. I mean, it's absurd what we're doing. And so to really take that time every single day, early in the morning, before the sun comes up, because once the sun has come up, you are at the mercy of mass consciousness. The field has awakened, right? The mass field has awakened. Before the sun rises, the field hasn't awakened, and the sun's at a 60-degree angle to the earth, which facilitates the release of negative emotions out of the subconscious mind. And so what you were saying is so perfectly said, because what you're doing between that kind of like 4 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. window, what you're doing is you're facing your fears, you're facing your negativity, you're facing yourself, and you're basically claiming victory over them. You're like, I am claiming victory over I'm conquering my negativity, I'm conquering my anxiety and my fears, and I'm going to walk in faith, in trust, and with this new reality, that high feeling that you talk about. I truly believe that's when we touch our nature. We touch our well-being, because it is our nature to be well. We are designed to be healthy, happy, and holy. Holy, no religious connotation there, simply meaning we're in total harmony with our inner being. And that is what causes women, because my work specializes with women, I believe, and human beings. I mean, really, I truly believe that, and I know it's the number one source of my pain, when somebody is out of alignment with their inner being, meaning when a woman is not listening to her intuition and giving her power away to an outside source, an outside authority, as the number one authority, she suffers tremendously. But any human being, it's simply a miss out of alignment with their inner being. It's kind of like you're walking around with one shoulder up and it's stuck and you can't get it down. And all you got to do is take a deep breath and release it, and wow, you're back in alignment. And that's what it is. And Kundalini yoga, meditation, and chanting is just one of those ancient, sacred yogic sciences that allows us to come back into alignment, into our nature, and really feel like, wow, look at this day. It's full of possibility. It's full of opportunity. The sun is shining. Yes, there is suffering going on in the world. Yes, there is war, but let me tend to my own vibration. Let me tend to my own inner being, because I know I can do more good in the world when I'm connected to me, when I'm in that space. I can do more good from that place than in any kind of like activism work where I'm pushing and fighting. And, I can do more good from that space of being in alignment.
What I want to point out here is that it's not fun to start, right? Like many of my patients will sit down to meditate for the first time, and they'll say that I didn't like my mind was racing. I don't like it. It didn't make me feel more calm, right? They expect this sort of instant gratification, and I felt a ton of anxiety rising, and I just want to make it clear there that when a lot of people start this practice, because people are going to listen to this and they're going to pick it up and they're going to try it once and say, oh God, that wasn't fun, right? But yeah, if you haven't cleaned the closet in a long time, there's a lot of shit in the closet, right? For lack of a better word.
True.
Like,
so true.
So when I sat down for the first time to start meditating, you do feel this rise, like, and I've played with this actually. Like I've done 40 days of meditation and I've stopped it cold turkey to see what happens for 20 or 30 days. And I'm a mess by day 30. It's almost as if I've been drinking coffee and not working out and not eating and not sleeping by that day. You become definitely addicted to the meditation, because you have to create a space in your life it's almost as if for me, and I've never gotten to the place where you have, obviously you've been doing this for, 10 times longer than I have, and much more consistently and much more in depth. But for the novice, you have to get to a place where, for me, I still sit down and I have a tantrum on my mat when I start, a mental tantrum. It's the only way to describe it. And it was at Omega where I sat through those mental tantrums, all the grief, all the things that needed to be healed, all the sorrows I had taken in being a psychotherapist for 10 years, the stories I had heard from other people, the tragedies, my own personal tragedies I had lived through, the tragedies of my, hundreds of patients, that I was able to have those tantrums on the mat. And then by like hour 2, they were starting to quell. Like that I was starting to calm down. And then by the end of the week, it was becoming a more and more easier experience to sink into that place, and deeper and more moving each time.
Yeah, I really hear you. It's so important to speak to that now. And I feel like, and let's just be really clear, Nell came on a week-long yoga retreat, right, which was focused on women and Kundalini yoga, which I co-teach with Gurumukh and Wa. And yeah, so at that point, you're getting up at 4 a.m. and doing the practice. But yes, for a new person, that's why Kundalini yoga is so effective, because you're moving most meditation, and you're chanting at the same time. So there's really almost no space to start to like, oh, I'm not doing it right. Or like, how do I focus? I can't possibly focus. So we start easy. We start with 3 minutes, or we start with 11 minutes. The biggest thing is consistency. I started Kundalini yoga, and I did an 11-minute meditation, Kirtan Kriya, which is the most researched meditation in Kundalini yoga by Stanford universities, all sorts of universities. And it is said to conquer fears, to deal with anxiety, addictions, and balance the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And it works. I did that for a whole year for 11 minutes. And that alone healed me. So what there is to do is find a teacher that you love. And it can be in a resident place. It can be online. There are so many online resources for Kundalini yoga now. and just begin with an 11-minute meditation. The beautiful thing about it is most Kundalini meditations are to music, so you can get the track and you can meditate sa ta na ma with the track for 11 minutes or 31 if you want, and that alone will make it so much easier to stick with it. And the other point I want to make, which you brought up, which is super important. So most people understand the chakra system, right? The chakra system is our energetic bodies.
That's what I wrote down,
right.
because I think you wrote 3 mind bodies and 6 physical bodies. And for
Exactly.
a lot of people still don't know what that means. They don't know what chakra or energetic bodies are. And I think this is really important. I just interviewed Jill Willard for the show. She wrote a book called Intuitive Being, and
Right.
she's out in California. And she talks about the publishers had her change it from chakras to energetic beings inside the body. So it was nice to hear you use that, because I think that's the English term and doesn't, turn people off right away. If they hear chakras, they have it kind of connotations about chakras.
I see.
But can you speak to that a little bit? Because I also think it's going to connect us to the next point that I want to get to, which is it's through those energy fields that we have that women then can connect into their intuition.
Very, very true. Very true. So yes, absolutely. I just want to speak on this. So a woman's capacity. A woman is by nature an intuitive being. And here's why. Because she has been given the gift to create life. So the fact that she has to be a mother, she has biologically being created to have these expanded capacities that a man does not have, because she creates life and she births and she is a mother. So what there is to understand is that every woman, whether she has a child or not, is a mother and has the mothering quality. And that is our healing. That is our nurturing aspect of being a woman. So because a woman has been created with what they say in Kundalini Yoga, the 16 times greater capacity than a man, it is because she needs to be able to take care of the child, breastfeed them, take care of the household, cook the dinner, pay the bills. I mean, when you look at what a woman does on a day-to-day, it's astounding. Mm-hmm. And then men have been created with this single focus because they are like our rocks. They keep us steady because we're lunar emotional beings, and men are solar beings, right? And so they are very focused and one task oriented and problem solvers, and women are cosmic and lunar beings, and they are emotionally fluctuate every 2.5 days. And there's such a deep science. I won't get into it, but you can go to my website for more of that. But so our intuition, especially as a woman and speaking to the women, it's like our internal GPS system. It is our guidance system. And when a woman trusts her intuition, she cannot go wrong. She will always be led down the right path, because trusting your intuition takes not only understanding but faith in what you can't see, and energy and understanding and energy that you can't see. So the 6 energetic bodies, right, and the 3 mental bodies and the physical body need to be aligned. They need to be operating with integrity. So we need to take care of all of them in order to really be able to hear the call of our intuition. And a woman can be quite disconnected, but still hear sometimes the very loud call of her intuition, because it is such a fundamental part of who we are. But imagine if women could just create space in their life, right, in their consciousness, through using simple tools like Kundalini Yoga and meditation. Imagine the power that they could source from their own being by being connected to their own intuition. That's why yoga, going to yoga classes, building community, going to on retreats to basically unplug from the world can be so very powerful because it can shift that.
So I want to go to two things there. One is, can you, three things actually. One is I want to say that my scientific mind, my conventional training sometimes goes to this place of wanting to ask, well, why does this work? And how do we know Kundalini works? And, what is the science behind it? But the biggest thing for people, and you can go into that because it has been well studied now, and meditation's more and more studied. And as you'll hear from other programs on the show, we're starting to understand and study consciousness scientifically much more than we ever have. But my best advice is it doesn't matter why. And I learned that at the retreat as well, right? Gurmukh says that. She's like, wait, I don't get why this technology, she calls it the technology works, but it does. So just do it. Just do what I'm saying, because some of it feels kind of weird. And so I want to say to the listeners, if there's anything on this program that like all of a sudden kind of turns you off like energetic bodies, just open yourself up to it and try it. It's like trying oysters if you've never tried oysters, right? It's just like trying something new. Just suspend whatever you think about it and just dive right in and see if it shifts you. And I can guarantee it will. When I hear the word intuition, I have certain thoughts about that. Can you tell me what your definition of intuition is? Because we talk a lot about intuition, but what actually is it?
It can manifest itself in different situations. I'll just talk about what it is for me. It's that quiet voice, like I'm about to leave the house and get in the car, and I just hear something in my mind. Oh, don't just go back and go to the restroom or something, or like don't go quite yet. And then I look around just in that quiet state, and I see I've left the stove on. Something like that. It can be something as I am driving along and I'm thinking about somebody just comes to mind that I haven't talked to in a while, and I get home and I have an email from them.
Yes.
It can be something like, I think about somebody and they call me, they've either left me a voice message or, they call me an hour later.
I want to say that it's a little bit frightening, actually, when you connect more and more. And I don't know if you've heard this from other women, because you work a lot with women, as you've said, and I want to go into that. But the more I connected into my intuition, the more I was like washing the windows. And the more I do this work, the farther down that road I go, the more and more those occurrences happen. Yes. And when it does, it still takes my breath away. And then when you have, it's happening almost hourly, as if you can call someone just through your higher conscious self and they then text you, it can be a little bit frightening. Have you heard the experience that is, as you tap into your intuition, more and more of these synchronicities start happening to people?
100%. I mean, but see, if we're really going to go to the fundamentals of what it is to be a human being, everything is energy first. Everything. And you'll hear that in every ancient spiritual walks of life, indigenous cultures. What an example of the native tribes in America. I mean, they're like the first examples that we should be listening to, because they're talking about these energies. Fathers, they have beautiful names for them and totems, but they are energies, and it's just the root of all disease, the root of all discomfort, the root of all things that don't feel right in our being is energetic first. And if we can but we can't get to that place without creating space. So the first thing we need to do is find a way to unplug, even if you don't want to meditate, but you get your butt out in nature without a phone, and you just go out in nature, and you just to commit like, okay, once a week, I'm going to take 3 hours and I'm going to go in nature, and I'm simply going to breathe and I'm going to listen. That alone will connect you to your own intuition. But intuition is just like, it's not only those things I described, but it's like this deep trust, in what you can't see. It's called faith. It's called faith. And faith is not religious, and it's not attached to any temple or religion. Faith is something that our soul knows. It's just inherent in us, but it's just our physical experience has disconnected us from it. So when we return to faith, our intuition reboots and just works automatically. Like it's an innate part of our system. And I know it can be frightening for some people who are not used to listen, but just think of it when you were a child, how intuitive you were, how happy you were, how connected you were to nature. Like everything made sense to you as a child. Mm-hmm. You know, and we all had those moments, whether we had traumatic childhoods or not. We all had those moments where everything made sense, you know, and that's intuition. It's kind of like returning to innocence, returning to trust, returning to our nature, knowing that everything works how it's supposed to work if we just allow it. And for that, again, because of the world, the hustle and bustle world we live in, we have to create space. There's a quote that my teacher would say, Yogi Bhajan, which I absolutely love, and I use it all the time. He goes, there are two ways a woman can live her life. She can either hustle and hassle, or she can relax and attract. Mm. Because when you relax and attract, you and your intuition become one, and you are creating, receiving, and manifesting in the energetic bodies before you are doing it in the physical.
So that brings up something really interesting for me, because I just thought of there that if women in particular aren't aligned with their energetic self, it's a very powerful thing, just as much as it's an incredibly powerful thing if they are aligned with it. Right? Because if we are that much more intuitive than, let's say, men, when we're that much more out of alignment, we're that much more out of alignment.
Absolutely. And that the brilliant point now, and because he would say, because women's 16 times greater capacity than men, okay, and this is no like men are lower than us, this is a biological fact, okay? We're 16 times more intuitive, 16 times more emotional, 16 times more intelligent, 16 times stronger. Imagine when we use that 16 times capacity and overdevelop ourselves in one area. Okay, or imagine when we lash out emotionally and basically lose our shit, we have 16 times greater the impact. That's why a woman can absolutely make a man or destroy a man. Mm-hmm. And you hear this often, behind every great man, there's an even greater woman, because she's the one holding him. So our ability to self-destruct, and I witnessed it in my own life. Before my rock bottom, I was suicidal. And I was either going to go down like my whole lineage of women, or I was going to do something different. And thank God I discovered Kundalini Yoga, the 12-step groups, and met my husband, who was really an amazing guide for me on the path. Because I was destroying everything around me. I was destroying every relationship. I had left, my family and everything there, like in order to get away from everything that I knew. I was destroying myself with all kinds of abuse and all kinds of chaotic, trauma-filled relationship. I was destroying every job I had. I was destroying every amazing opportunity that I had to share my gift with music and with all sorts of things. And at some point, I just woke up. I was like, okay, there has to be another way. I had enough faith. I found enough faith within me to believe that there was something else possible. And then it was only through the act of showing up day to day in community that I got support, I got held, I got guided, and I turned my life, I did a complete 180. That now I'm teaching this work, and I'm deeply, deeply passionate about helping women, especially women who thinks they have mental issues, because I've been there. And I know it's totally possible through this technology, from what I've experienced, to do a 180. It's totally possible.
So I just did a show with Dr. Julie Holland about women who are on the birth control pill and on antidepressants. And what has become so frightening for me doing this work, and I was part of that system for a very long time in conventional medicine of recommending medication for patients for almost a decade. And then when I met a few people and started Kundalini Yoga and had my own spiritual awakening, I really had to hit my knees in prayer and meditation to have this reckoning of how am I doing this work? And what do these medications do to women hearing their intuition? And that, to me, is one of the biggest human travesties of our time, is that when we over-medicate people or medicate people, especially women, we deaden that voice. They can't hear that voice because it flatlines us, right? When we're on the birth control pill, we don't feel that lunar cycle. We don't ovulate. And then you put Prozac or Zoloft or Xanax on top of it, it again cuts them off from their intuition. And when we do that, not only do we cut ourselves off from our spiritual self, from those voices, but we cut ourselves off even further from community, from our relationships with people, from that deep connection we need to thrive, from the consciousness around us, from universal consciousness. So I just want to talk for a second about what your work entails. And we can all imagine why. We all kind of understand why women stop listening to their intuition, right? We're told from a very young age that we're not enough over and over and over again, that somebody else can tell us better how we should be thinner, how we should date this guy, how we should go to this school. We want to be good. We don't want to cause conflict. So we're constantly tapping down our own voice, our own intuition, to listen to the voice of others. And we don't live by our own agency. And usually because when women do tap into our intuition and live out through our own agency, we become so powerful that it does create conflict in families. One of the largest reasons we have estrangement from families as women is because there's a patriarch in the family and we look at them and say, my gut is telling me that's not the right choice and I don't want to make that decision, and people can't handle it.
Powerful. What you're saying is so huge, because there's more study than ever that disconnection is the root of all addiction. Mm-hmm. We all so crave, especially now, in this technological age, we so crave connection. And that's why I love to gather women. My work is about, yes, I bring in the tools of Kundalini Yoga, meditation, some of the indigenous teachings that I've learned over the last, 15 years as well. But the number one thing that heals is just women coming together. Mm. Women coming together with this in this container of, I want to heal, I want to be understood, I want to be heard, I want to know why this is not working. What can I do to make this work? Just the act of women coming together heals. And my teacher said that. He would say, you guys don't even need all of this. Just coming together and counseling each other and listening to each other and learning from each other, that alone is enough. But you put in a powerful ancient practice like Kundalini Yoga and meditation, and you truly will witness healing. I've seen women come to my retreat. In one particular, there was one woman who came to Costa Rica last year. She was retired and 60-something, and she'd been on Prozac for, I think, over 10 years. After the retreat, she decided to stop, and she's doing better than ever. She does a daily practice every single day. She writes me once a week. Like, I can't tell you how grateful I am, because just that simple act of removing that substance, which, like you said, cuts us from our intuition, cuts us from our emotions. Like, one thing that I have really learned in raising a 5-year-old girl, healing my own, inner child, and that's a continued journey, and being a woman, is emotions. Feeling our emotions is so important. I'm a big crier because, you know what? Crying and tears soften my heart. Because otherwise, with my tendency and my nature to move towards extreme behaviors of addiction, whatever it is, with food or with behavior to control, that those tears soften my heart and bring me back to my femininity. And it's so beautiful. And I'm very vulnerable like that. And sometimes I'll teach a group of women and just tear up. And it's okay. Because I want to teach women that their emotions are totally fine. They are emotional beings by nature. They are lunar beings. They are going to have fluctuating emotions over a 28-day cycle. And if you're in touch with yourself and you're not medicating yourself, you're going to feel that. Now, the beautiful work that we get to do today and what we get to teach our daughters is how to channel those emotions, how to channel them into surrender, into awakening, because they are a part of life, they are beautiful, and they should not be restricted or buried or not felt. I mean, they're here to guide us. Our emotions are a guiding system connected to our intuition. So my work is really through the technology of Kundalini yoga and meditation, is to help women understand, number one, they are not crazy. Number one, that they can return to a place of well-being, to their own nature, to allow them to feel their emotions in tow with developing a daily practice of meditation, of prayer, whatever they pray to, it doesn't matter, of prayer, which means connecting with their inner being. And through the exercises and the different kriyas that would really get the whole nervous systems online, get the mental bodies steady and more neutral rather than fluctuating between negative and positive. So and gathering women to celebrate their beauty in whatever shape, size, or body they come in. You know, I'm not your classic skinny yoga teacher. I'm a curvy woman, and I'm really starting to appreciate that. You know, just like wow, I'm this like curvaceous yoga teacher, because most yoga teachers are like, you know, are pretty thin and look a certain way in this day and age in America. And I'm becoming very proud to be this curvy yoga teacher who really loves to empower women.
Well, what's amazing about you, it's so funny that you even think that you would call yourself curvy, because you are thin. But there's a sensuality that you're embracing in that. For me, like, and there's something very sensual about watching you as opposed to somebody else sing what you sing, right? Because you are the embodiment of what we imagine a woman's figure to look like, because you look like a woman, right? You don't look like a little boy. Not to say all yoga instructors who are really thin look like little boys, but you get what I'm saying there.
I do, yes.
The part that I really loved about what you said there is that I know in my own personality, because I'm both very analytical and very creative, and I'm not on medication. So I live by my cycles, and I'm dynamic, and I bring a lot to the table, and I have a t-shirt that says NFE. I am not for everyone. I've done interviews now on sex and relationships and intimacy that have been listened to by thousands and thousands of people. Yeah. And I swear, and I talk about all kinds of things. And
love it.
But if I know my power, right, is underneath the surface there. And I know I can bring it out when I want to, but I love what you said. I can wreak havoc on myself, mentally and emotionally, on other people, on my children in a way, on family members, on friends. Kind of when you want to like pull out that sword and strike something with lightning, as a woman, you really can. And I think that that's, again, the really beautiful thing is that you can't, it's not that I don't want to encourage everyone to taper off their medications. Some people, it's obviously there's exceptions to rules, and going off medication is a lot because you have to work at this, like to align your energetic bodies, to eat the correct diet, to clear your body, to work on body consciousness, eating intuitively. There's a whole system to this, which part of these podcasts are going to be teaching. It's not just one thing. But the psycho-spiritual practice of Kundalini and the mantras and the meditations is so key for those of us who are deciding to live on the wilder edges of who we are in that dynamic self as women, Because if you don't have a place to help you contain it or teach you how to contain it, it can be very destructive.
So well said. And the simplest way I want to share it, this comes through my teacher too, which I always teach on my retreats and in my work with women, is the biggest downfall of women is the 3 C's. And the 3 C's are complaining, comparing, and competing. When a woman compares herself to another man or to another woman, she's immediately just like wrecking herself. When she complains because her manifestational ability is 16 times greater, do you know, in every religious text, and God was the Word, and the Word was with God, right? My husband says, God lives on the tip of your tongue. Everything that you say manifests itself, right? If you say it long enough. So it's like, complaining, comparing, and competing, and we replace those 3 C's by being content, committed, and contained, right? Mm-hmm. So when a woman learns to contain her 16 times greater capacity, it grows, and she develops incredible manifestational powers. She develops incredible healing powers. Her power, like, quadruples because she knows how to contain her energy. So just with one word, she can heal. With one touch, she can heal. Mm-hmm. And we've witnessed it, you know, around the Guru Mukhs and the Krishna Kars and those amazing women in this community. Like, they're uber powerful because their energy is contained. So when you contain your energy, you tap into this infinite resource of vitality, energy, and healing power that is within a woman. And when you are content, you stop comparing yourself, you stop competing, you stop complaining, you live in sufficiency. It doesn't mean that you don't have desires and you don't want more. That's all a part of life, and it's beautiful. But you learn to be content, and that means that you live in a state of gratitude. Mm-hmm. And that's a constant practice for me every single day. You know, every day, just because I'm saying these things, that's why I get up at 5 a.m. and meditate every single day and chant. Mm-hmm, because I want to live in contentment. I want to live with my containment. I want to live committedly, you know, and that's daily work.
That's the spiritual warriorship. Like, it's not that you all of a sudden have this sort of experience of awakening through Kundalini and then it's done. Right? It's the spiritual warriorship is putting these things into practice every single day. You know, one thing about your story that was resonating with me, that I heard through it, and I didn't know your personal background as much in detail until today, is that Francis Weller, who's a spiritual guru, he's a writer who wrote a beautiful book called The Wild Edge of Sorrow that I interviewed for the first show, said that we need people like you to have walked through the fire and then come back and teach us. We need the elders to come back into the community after they've experienced what they've gone through and then teach. And you're at that place. I know that this part of my doing this podcast is that I've done this work long enough to then be able to go back into the community and teach, to be an elder. So I want to hear it from you, one of the elders, much more so than me, who's just learning these kinds of concepts. What is the rise of the divine feminine? Can you just give a few sentences to that? Because people I know are starting to hear it more and more, and they're asking me about it. But
great question. I feel that it is the divine feminine. To me, represents Mother Earth, represents the feminine energy of a whole consciousness. And the feminine energy is nurturing, it's healing, it's encouraging, it's inspiring. And all of the greatest spiritual teachers have said, when the women come back, something to the effect of, when women come back into their true power, their innate power, the men will line up and the violence on the planet will stop. So I feel the rise of the divine feminine is simply women creating space in their life, surrounding themselves with community of like-minded, these sorts of teachings that are about uplifting, coming back to our true essence, and create enough space that they can hear that internal voice within them, which is that very feminine voice, and they can source back into their true power, and then that alone will affect their families, all the men that surround them, because by nature, a woman's auric field is huge. It's wide. And you always hear this connotation, the woman sets the tone in the household. Happy wife, happy life, right? Mm-hmm. We hear this often. It's very true, because a woman is so magnetic and so powerful that people are swimming in her aura. So the men and her children and the household is swimming in whatever emotional frequency she's vibrating in. So the rise of the divine feminine to me is simply women understanding and coming back into their true power, and then really doing the daily work that needs to be done to stay connected to it and to start to heal those around her.
And then have...
And because of that, that will tilt the scales on the planet back to this equilibrium out of this patriarchy consciousness, this patriarchy world that we've been living in. It will tip the scales back to level where all things are in harmony again. I mean, that's our greatest hope.
And when things are back in harmony, when the male energy is balanced with the feminine energy, masculine energy is balanced with feminine energy, that's the Adi Shakti. Right?
Beautiful.
Okay.
The primal power. the primal power. Yeah, the Adi Shakti is the divine feminine power. It's the primal creative power. But you know what? A woman cannot create without a man. So of course it includes masculine energy. But I love how you said that. The balance of feminine and masculine is the Adi Shakti. Love that. Well said, yeah.
As you heard from the interview, Sukhdev is passionate about helping women hear their inner voice and step into their power. For more information on her online webinars, Shakti School, and global retreats, please visit her website at sukhdevjackson.com. That's SUKHDEVJACKSON.com. Almost every Sunday, she teaches a free, live, online Kundalini yoga and meditation class. If you can experience her, I would. Her work and instruction is transformative.